Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Just letting folks into the
Hi.
room, letting folks into the webinar. We'll start in a moment.
إلهام أنت سامع المزيكا دي؟
والله أنا سامعة مزيكا، في مزيكا شغالة.
أي أنا ما عارفة جاي من وين.
بري أنا ما عندي. غايته بين هذا مسكون.
People are starting to join. Welcome, everyone.
Rita, do you have music in the background?
No, people can hear you, though.
But I heard music in the background. I don't know where it is coming from.
No, either. I don't hear it.
I hear it. It's very loud. Let me check.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. Really appreciate you being here. Our webinar today is called Strength and Solidarity in Sudan. And thanks to all of you who made time to join us today to talk about this really, really important issue. Bienvenue à ce webinaire Force et Solidarité au Soudan. My name is Rita Morbia, and I'm a co-manager at Interpares. I have the privilege of doing a brief introduction. We'll just go over some logistics and a few other things before we start in earnest. Interpares, which means Among Equals, is a Canadian feminist social justice organization that believes in solidarity as an approach to international cooperation. We work with activist groups in many parts of the world, including Sudan, as well as here in Canada. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which Interpares stands is on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe people. In acknowledging the land, we also want to reaffirm our institutional commitment to act in solidarity with Indigenous people in three key ways. First, by nurturing programmatic links with Indigenous movements and activism, particularly feminist Indigenous organizing. Second, by supporting Indigenous resistance and resurgence. And thirdly, by encouraging our organizations, supporters, and other non-Indigenous people to support and invest in movements for Indigenous rights and decolonization. In highlighting these commitments, I'm reminding myself and encouraging other settlers to take a moment to reflect on how these commitments might inform our engagement in today's event, that there is no peace without justice abroad or at home. This webinar will be held in English, but we do have simultaneous interpretation into French. Click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen to access this feature. Ce webinaire se déroulera en anglais, mais nous disposons d'une interprétation simultanée en français. Cliquez sur l'icône de la map monde en bas de votre écran pour accéder à cette fonctionnalité. And a reminder as well to speak slowly for the interpreter. Our technical support today is Monique Couillet. Please send her a message in the chat if you are experiencing issues. She will also be monitoring the chat to ensure comments are respectful. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. We hope to have some time for questions near the end, so please put them in the chat as well at any point during the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Interpares website and sent to everyone who is registered. Lastly, we will be discussing some very difficult issues, particularly relating to war and conflict in Sudan. So please do what you need to take care of yourself. Now I'm going to hand over the mic to our moderator, Dr. Amanda Dale, Chair of the Board of Inter-Pares. And you will see her bio in the chat as well. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Rita. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I am just thrilled to be with my old friends, Asha El-Karib and Ilham Ibrahim. We've been working together for over 25 years now, across many differences and similarities. And it's my great honor to be able to talk to you today about the work that you're currently doing. I wanted to, kind of ground us a little bit in the context for those who are not as familiar. And I just wanted to let the audience know that since April 15th, 2023, Sudan has witnessed a disastrous war that erupted in Khartoum, and which is the capital. And it was between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid response forces. And it's grown into the largest and fastest displacement crisis in the world. And it's causing the largest humanitarian crisis on record. Despite all of the diplomatic efforts, people like yourselves who have been running civil society organizations have been displaced. And so I wanted just to speak to hear from you both. And Ilham, I think you're the one that's going to address this question. Can you give us a bit of an update of where things are at now politically and how the two of you are managing to stay engaged in the work that you do? Ilham, you need to unmute.
Thank you, Enterprise, for organizing this webinar. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you all for joining us in this important webinar. This is really very important to us. As Dr. Amanda has mentioned, the RSF and SAF, the Sudan Armed Forces, and the Sudan Rapid Support Forces, RSF, are in this conflict since mid-April 2023. Regarding the political developments now, I'm going to focus on 4 points. The first one is recently, like 2 weeks ago, the RSF, alongside with political entities aligned with RSF, have announced a plan of establishing a parallel government in Sudan to administer regions under their control. And this development raises serious concerns regarding Sudan unity, as there would be or might be 2 distinct administrations emerging in different territories. This development has faced by international criticism, and the concerns are the step might lead to worsen the conflict itself, but more importantly, it will jeopardize Sudan unity and integrity. And maybe leading bodies now who have raised these concerns, including members of the UN Security Council, the Arab League, the African Union, so many countries, USA, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, but anyway, the government of Kenya has hosted the meeting to announce that government. And the second development is regarding the military advances itself. So SAF, the Sudanese armed forces, have recently made some progress in or expansion in reclaiming territories, including Khartoum and some neighboring states like Jazeera, some parts. But having said that, this does not mean continue governing or continue controlling these territories, because we always witness this movement between the two conflicting parties and their aligned militias. Third point is Sudan is continuing experiencing severe violations on civic and political rights. Suppression of freedoms, both SAF and RSF have been suppressing freedoms of assembly, of expression, the press, journalists, activists, human rights defenders are facing threats, attacks, and killings, and even sexual violence, especially targeting women. Civil society organizations, especially organizations, human rights organizations and women rights organizations, women-led organizations, are facing restrictions on movement, halting their activities and denying their right to outreach their entire stakeholders and partners at local level. Violation of civic rights also include all these civilian causalities and displacement. As you mentioned, Sudan now top the list of the number of people who have been displaced from their homes. Now it has been estimated to be 13 million persons. Women and girls represent more than 2/3 of this number, either IDPs inside Sudan or seeking refuge and migrate to other surrounding countries. Access to all basic services are denied now under such disastrous war. I may stop here.
Thank you, Ilham. It's heartbreaking to hear about what's going on. And I know that both you and Asha have had to flee the country along with thousands, hundreds of thousands of others. And I'm wondering if, you know, kind of how you are staying engaged in the work that you do on the impact of this on women in particular in Sudan. How are you staying engaged as an organization? How do you even keep that communication going? How do you keep yourself sustained when you've had to flee, when there's this kind of persecution? And I know that you've done some really important and difficult work staying in touch with women who are still experiencing the forms of sexual violence that you've talked about back in Sudan. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But how are you just sustaining yourselves at the moment? Asha, are you able to comment on that a bit as well? Asha, you have to unmute, I'm afraid.
I thought I will follow Ilham because she's going to talk about the organization. And maybe, or I can start, no problem.
Either way, go right
Yeah.
ahead, Ilham.
Okay. The Sudanese Organization for Research and Development, SORD, is a feminist organization working in Sudan since 2007. And our core objective is rotating around gender equality, non-discrimination, and inclusion. Currently, we work both in Sudan in different or in 5 states inside Sudan, as well as in Uganda. Maybe when Asha speaks, I can continue on the current situation now regarding SWORD and its interventions in different parts of Sudan.
Thank you so much, Ilham. Asha, please go ahead.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks, Ilham. And thank you for organizing the webinar. This is really a golden opportunity for us to talk about what is happening in our country. The question addressed to me is how are we continuing the work? And my direct and obvious answer is, do we have an alternative? Do we have an option? I think we do not have any other option. We have to continue doing our work. We do not have the choice. But when I say that, I don't want anyone to think that this is easy. It's not easy at all. And it takes more than looking at the broader cause and the broader commitment. It takes you to look beyond yourself, because as you said, Amanda, we experienced the war live and the impact of it. So to continue what we are doing, we must look beyond ourselves and our personal challenges. We have to, as I always do to myself, have to remind myself all the time that we have a commitment. We made a commitment to the people we work with. We have a commitment towards our country. We have a commitment towards the future of our children. So there is no way for us to just be passive or not to try to do something within this very, really difficult, very hard, very complex situation. At the personal level, and I think every sleepless night, and I am experiencing almost many sleepless nights, I always have a conversation with myself. Like, I tell myself that there is no room for despair. There is no room for losing hope. But I also remind myself that it is okay for me to not to be okay, and to also show that, in the end we are human beings, and we have also our internal issues and our weaknesses. I think one of the things that drive me to continue the work is that I am, for example, and I think I will talk also for Ilham and probably few of our colleagues, we are one of the few privileged people in Sudan. I experienced the war, but it took me like 11 days to be in a safe place. Only 11 days. During these 11 days, the people I live with, my neighbors, probably some of my relatives, were not even able to move, So I was able to do that because, as I said, I'm one of the few privileged people. I'm educated. I don't have economic issues. I have also an educated extended family who supported us all the way. So if I have that privilege, then I have to use it. And I have to think about the thousands and thousands of women who do not have that privilege. They don't have the access, you know. They live in camps with almost nothing, you know. I have seen the camps myself because before my city was attacked, and I was working with the women and girls in the camps in my village and in my nearby town. So I saw the situation that I myself am in now, or the people who experienced the war in my area. So I know the situation. But the situation got worse because of the huge number of people who've been displaced. You know, when Ilham left the country, it was only Khartoum that was attacked, and of course the war in Darfur continued, and it never stopped even before 2023. But when I left, the war expanded to Jazeera, it expanded to parts of Kordofan, it expanded to Sinnar area. So the number of families who are moving and fleeing the conflict increased, and the humanitarian situation got worse and worse by the day. So just thinking about that in my mind, and thinking about the commitment SWORD made to the people we worked with, you know. We are not an uprooted organization. We have built bridges and linkages and relationship with thousands of women we work with in Sudan. So there is no way for us just to disappear from those women. We have to keep these links. We have to restore the trust that we have built through time. And thinking about that all the time gives me some, and my organization, the whole organization, the courage and the energy to continue. Another very important issue is that I am now in Uganda, and so is some of us here, but most of our staff are in Sudan. The SWORD itself has 4 offices in Sudan. And the insecurity and the possibility of the war reaching those areas and the continuation of what SWORD is doing at that level is also a driving force for us to not to give up, you know, to continue the work. So as I started by saying, we do not have an option. We do not have an option as an organization. I do not have an option as the personal level. And there is no way for us to just play the victim and withdraw from what is happening. I repeat that this is not easy. And there are ups and downs. And there are moments where you just think that whatever you are doing is not making a difference, you know. Whatever you are doing fall beyond the expectation and beyond the needs of the people we are working with. But those moments, fortunately, comes and goes, you know. And this is the reality. We have to live with it, you know. We have to live with the fact that we are in a situation of a very vicious war, probably the worst war, you know, in the recent history. And there is no like any light in the future, as Ilham said. You know, the situation is getting worse by the day, or probably by the hour. That's a reality. That's a reality. We either face it and try to do something, or you just die, not literally, but just not be there, which is for us is not an option, as I said.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I think because of that, because of all these strengths, you know, if the word is right, strengths that SWORD developed through time, and because we really have a very thoughtful and quick, management in sort, they take the right decisions at the right time. So the fact that SWORD moved from Khartoum to Kassala and then from Kassala to Uganda was actually done with a lot of courage and at that time with a lot of risks. We were facing so many risks. We were going into a future that we do not have the ingredients to portray it or to imagine it, but it's been done, and that is why I think we are now in a much better position as an organization. And fortunately, we are gaining new people, and SWORD is being acknowledged by so many of the actors and the people we work with. And I will talk about that later when we talk about the achievements or about the research in particular. Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, thank you, Asha. And I wish this distance wasn't between us and that we weren't virtual, because, this is where solidarity needs a hug, I think. So thank you for sharing that with us. And there's lots of comments from friends and allies in the comments congratulating you for the brilliant decisions you're making at SWORD, and acknowledging that you're working through your own trauma at the same time as you're trying to deal with the trauma of others. And I think your words of wisdom about despair not being an option is something that, really the whole globe needs to understand. We're in a time of clawback of everything around the world. And even those of us who are not in the middle of a war are in the middle of a different kind of war, a war against rights. And I think this solidarity that we have when we have these conversations and we extend our solidarity to each other across these great distances and differences is critical to keeping us all sustained in this fight and in these fights. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know that you have been able to sustain hope, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. And I know some of my dear friends and colleagues who are in the audience today have also talked about this in their own work in Sudan. But I know that part of what gave rise to hope for you is some of the research that you have done as an organization. So you both discover what is awful in the world, and at the same time are inspired by the resilience and resistance that you come across. And so I know that you did some research on the effects of war on women in Sudan. And I wondered if you might talk to us a little bit about what that research was and why you think it's so important.
Definitely. Thank you, Amanda. I just want to remind all of us that the R in SWORD is the research. So SWORD is the Sudanese Organization for Research and Development. And through our history, we were keen to conduct research and to mainly to inform us on what we are going to do, but also on to inform us on the type of advocacy we would like to share. And during our experience, we develop or we become more strong in conducting research using participatory tools or participatory methodology. And later, while we are doing that, we also learn more about the feminist methodology, which is also participation is in the heart of the feminist methodology. And when the war erupted in 2023, and I remember the conversation among the organization at that time, despite the the issues we were facing, including the destruction of our office in Khartoum, which is completely demolished. So we thought, okay, we are in a situation where we have to be aware of our role in documenting what is happening to the women on the ground. Especially that this war from the beginning showed all the signs of brutality and all the signs of committing the worst type of violence against women, including, of course, not including, but at the top of it is the sexual violence against women. Including rape and including sexual exploitation and everything. So we started, at that time, the war was in Khartoum. I remember I was in Jazeera, and we have an office in Kassala as well. So we thought maybe these are 3 points where we can start documenting these experiences. So we started with 2 researches, probably parallel at the same time. One of them is to focus on Khartoum, because Khartoum was difficult, you know. Khartoum at that time was like a closed area, you know. People are fleeing Khartoum. Nobody comes to Khartoum to do anything. But fortunately, we still have our network, the women we worked with in Khartoum, who helped us a lot in conducting this research and documenting the cases, you know. And some of those women are part of what is called the emergency rooms, you know. And these emergency rooms are rooms that are created to support the victims and to support the people who are directly affected by the war. So through our network within these emergency rooms and others, we were able to document more than 20, I think more than 27 cases of direct sexual violence on women. We talked directly to the victims. And that was the first part. And then that encouraged us to continue the documentation in Jazeera and in Kassala, where the situation is a little bit different because they were considered like relatively safe areas, you know. And people were displaced. Women were displaced from Khartoum to those 2 areas. And we also were able to document cases, but in addition to that, we were able to identify other types of violence against women, or the women themselves described some sorts of violence that they are facing, which from our perspective, we did not necessarily thought about it. And I give 2 examples. The first example is what they call the economic violence. And when we talk to them about what do they mean by that, they said the women are trying to provide for their family. They are trying to do whatever they could to provide for the family. They sell vegetables, they sell food, you know, they sell handicrafts, whatever they have. And then they sell tea. And then the security people come and brutally, harass them, you know. They confiscate whatever they find. They impose very high fines for them to pay. And they said this is economic, because we are poor, because we have to care for our family, because we have to provide food on the table. And this is the only way we could do that, because we came as displaced. We have nothing. We lost everything. And then we are faced with this type of violence. So this is something added to the sexual violence. And they also talked about the the increase in domestic violence, the increase of beating or battering the wives and the daughters and the sisters by their brothers, their husbands, their. So they said this is increasing, and it is not. Some of them are injured. You know, I met a woman who lost her eye, for example. I met a woman whose hand was, her arm was broken, because those men are frustrated, I think, and they come at home and they wanted women to do everything, and then they beat them, you know. So these are like additions to the different types of violence that we documented. Another type of research, we expanded the idea of collecting information, not only on sexual violence, but about the whole situation, what is happening at large. And we started a joint venture with UN Women to talk to the women individually and in groups in 16 states of Sudan. That was done in 2023, May, June 2023. We talked to more than 450 women. And we tried to collect as much information, as much opinions, as much perceptions, as much hopes, challenges that those women are facing. And this information, the sword was leading, and we presented it in a big conference here in Kampala in October 2023. And accordingly, there was a declaration which is called the Kampala Feminist Declaration, which the main input of this declaration was the research that we did. And then we continued this consultation. We found that this is a good way to talk to women. And we talk to the women through their local networks, you know, because we cannot do it physically from either Kassala or from Kampala. So we continue these consultations again. Let me just look at the papers to just show you the numbers. We talked to 230 women during April, May 2024, and then to more than 150 women, I think 165 women, covering 60 states, including Khartoum itself, and including the women refugees in Kampala here. So these two researches have revealed more information, because between October 2023 and October 2024, so many things happened on the ground. You know, the situation has worsened. You know, in a like a very fast momentum. And I just want to narrate some of the issues that we discussed with those women. First of all, we wanted to know the current situation. You know, we wanted those women to talk about their current situation, about how they are living from one day to another, about how they are surviving, about the challenges they are facing, about what has changed, you know, since, because most of them were displaced, you know. And by the way, we talked to the displaced and the host community as well. The people who, because we have displaced in camps and we have host community who hosted so many of the displaced people, and mainly women. So what has changed during this journey? Because displacement is a process. It is not just moving from one place to another. It's a whole process, you know. So what has changed and what is currently changing? Because the war is continuing. Focusing on the gender roles, you know, how the typical gender roles have changed, you know. Have they changed to the women, to the children, to the men? to all people, what is happening when it comes to the gender roles. How is the war affecting the family ties, family relations, their relationship with their relatives, with their communities, with their even nuclear families, extended families? How is the war affecting that, and in what way? Do they work together? Do they work individually? What type of ties they are building? What type of mechanisms, surviving mechanisms, coping mechanisms the women are doing, like, as I said, the emergency rooms, for example, or other type of mechanisms before survival. What are they doing to protect themselves? To work together, to care for each other, to provide support for each other. And then whether they have experienced gender-based violence, sexual violence, and what types of violence they have experienced. Who are the most affected? Who are the direct victims? Who are the perpetrators? Who committed these crimes of violence? Are they getting any sort of protection? Who is responding to what is happening to them? In terms of protection, in terms of response, in terms of providing the needed, for example, medicines and so on. Has the war affected the domestic violence? Is it increasing the domestic violence? Is it decreasing it? What is happening when it comes to domestic violence inside the family? And who are the most affected by the violence? Who are the most affected? Are all people affected equally or not? Are there any type of resistance? And what sort of resistance? Is it like a direct resistance, or is it some sort of indirect, little bit hidden sort of resistance? How do they see the future? How do they see the future of Sudan in general, in terms of security, in terms of peace? We also collected personal stories, oral testimonies from the women directly, like face-to-face interviews. So these consultations reveals a lot to us, actually. It reveals so many things, some of them like underscoring and confirming what we have assumed, but some of them are even new to us. For example, all the women we talked to have been impacted negatively by the war. All of them, you know. But however, these experiences vary a lot depending on so many factors, and those factors are interrelated. For example, the economic situation, the social class they come from, the ethnicity, the tribe, the social status, the disability, the age, all these issues.
Yeah, you and I talked a little bit about
them.
this leading up to this webinar. Asha, you and I talked about the way in which the effects of violence, although there's ample research all over the world that in times of conflict, women experience amplified forms of gender-based violence. It's also true that the impact is differentiated and that
Yes.
it's intersectional. And,
definitely,
when you look at the context of war crimes, it's really important in the background to war crimes what forms of discrimination and disadvantage and structural oppression existed before. And those amplify what happens during war. And what you've described and what I read in your research is that those who had relative disadvantage before the war, or who were, there were prejudice against them for their ethnicity, their class background, they were more subjected to forms of patriarchy. They too are now experiencing more extreme forms of violence in the conflict and around the conflict.
yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
I can give examples. do you know that during this conflict, in some states, the state governors have, just remind me with Trump, they invented a bylaw, which is called the Foreign Faces Law. Um, and it is very, this is a translation from Arabic, but in Arabic it is very, very telling, you know, where people are discriminated against based on their features, whether for their color, their hair type, their other features, you know, and they consider them as intruders, you know. They are they get them from transport, you know. They sometimes they take them for interrogation. They imprison them just based on that, you know, based on what they call the foreign faces, you know. And the argument that they are giving is really, really very funny, because they said that the RSF is recruiting people from outside Sudan. From the neighboring countries, from Central Africa, from Chad, and we think that those people are not Sudanese. Even if you show your Sudanese identity and you are arrested as a foreign base, then you have it. Discrimination in, of course, opportunities, other opportunities. This was happening before the war, and it is now happening even more. But the big issue for me, which is all these researches did not reveal, the issue of LGBT QI. And I put it very clearly. Either we fail to reach them during these consultations, or they make themselves invisible for us to be reached, or maybe both. I don't know.
Of course, and maybe it makes sense.
And these questions need to be explored. We need to talk about them. We need to try and see. We know that there are so many people, you know, but they are not there. Another manifestation of this is what is happening to the disabled people living with disability. And when it comes to sexual violence and discrimination that is happening to the people living with with disability, it's really huge. However, it is also very clear that girls and women are more vulnerable. They are more the victims when it comes to discrimination. I have heard so many stories about girls of 10 years who are disabled who got pregnant. Some of them are they died during delivery, and this is happening without any protection. Sometimes it happens in the open space, you know. So what is happening to women and girls living with disability is really very alarming. Another group is the children. We call them in Sudan the children without support. Those are the children who do not have fathers legally, and their women abandon them. Their mothers abandon them. And we have a very clear case, I think last week, of a 13 years old girl who is being killed by the man who's supposed to protect her in the camp. He beat her to death, you know. And this group are absolutely vulnerable. They have no way to go. They are so very much vulnerable. So as I said, despite the fact that all women and girls are affected by the war, but you could see that their experiences is different. The type of violence they are exposed to is very much different. The level of attention that they get is almost negligible, you know. even from what is called the human rights defenders, or sometimes the humanitarian organizations, they tend to just turn a blind eye, you know, when it comes to disabled people, or when it comes to people of different coming from different places or from different tribes. I also heard some few stories that I'm not quite sure of. I cannot say that authentically. That there are some also discrimination against religious minorities. You know, especially when it comes to getting the papers, you getting your identity paper, or you getting your passports, you know, or for families who are trying to get family support, because in case of marriage and divorce and so on, because there is no like a valid law for non-Muslims in Sudan. So they don't get any attention, you know. So as you said, yes, issues, it's very clear that the war is affecting all of us. It's affecting us differently. It is also, and in that sense, it is also shaping our identities differently. And it's probably even shaping the way we think and the way we behave, because the war changed people, you know, the way they behave, and we don't know what will happen in the future, because what is happening is so ugly, and it is so transformative in a negative way in Sudan.
Yeah, and we know that this has generational impacts. As you say, it's transformative in a negative way. And
Yeah,
you know, I think it's important that we sit with this impact and not, you know, not turn from it. But at the
yeah,
same time,
definitely.
I know from talking to you that you've done additional research, and I know some of our the members of our audience have also been involved in documenting the fierceness of young women and young feminists who are demanding a seat at the peace talk table. And your report talks about the importance of advancing, you know, Resolution 1325 in what now takes place in Sudan. So for those who don't know, I'm going to put something in the chat for you about what 1325 is, but it's essentially a UN Security Council resolution that demands that women have a seat at the table during peace talks. And I know that there's been some really important conversations that you've had with young feminists, and that people who are also working on issues in Sudan who are in our audience today have also had. I wonder if you can comment a bit on where that hope comes from for you, that there could be a transformation.
Okay, the Women, Peace and Security Framework, mainly known as 1325, but other resolutions, it has, in my view, and according to the results of the consultations, there are two sides of it. You know, women are looking at it from two probably different sides. One side is that if we have a genuine 1325 national plan, then maybe women will have a chance to be part of the peace processes and to be part of the post-conflict period. Because 1325 is talking about participation, it's talking about protection and prevention from violence, and it is talking about recovery and rehabilitation. And it has been strengthened by other resolutions, you know, including putting commitments to the government themselves to support 1325 plan and to provide resources and to have very clear mechanisms, you know, to effect 1325. So, and from that perspective, it is seen by so many women as an instrument that may improve their situation, giving them a little bit of hope. Although we we missed the opportunity of the transitional period, you know, and we came up with a 1325 plan that is not necessarily reflecting the aspiration of the Sudanese women at that time. But anyway, the coup sabotaged everything. So the other side of 1325 is coming mainly from women who believe strongly in nonviolence, who believe strongly in the fact that the current peace processes are very patriarchal. They are very classical. They are very conventional. 1325 is just trying to insert some and probably find some commitments, you know, so that those women are accompanied through this process. But it doesn't challenge the process itself. It doesn't challenge the engineering of the process itself. So the women are saying we have experienced peace processes before. And 1325, although we did not have a national plan, but it has been very well known in Darfur, particularly in Darfur, in the last agreement of Darfur, the Doha Agreement, which was signed in 2011. So, but despite that, the women did not gain anything from the Doha Agreement, you know. And that is why they think that unless women are able to have a say in the mechanism itself, in the content of the process itself from the beginning, not come later to be part of the process, unless they challenge the very patriarchal, the very classical way of peace negotiation, which rotates around share of power and share of wealth, and some, it's very typical, share of wealth and share of power, and then some issues of security arrangements, you know. So it's just dividing everything between the warring parties and ignoring the population and ignoring women in particular. So they think that we have an experience. So the first experience separated the South, you know, and the two other experiences in Darfur, the war in Darfur is still continuing.
Yeah.
So we need to think differently. We need to think, we need to challenge the women peace and security framework itself,
Yeah.
so that it is more feminine, rather than just being something added to the situation.
Yeah.
And
Add women and stir, I always
exactly.
say. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're saying that in relation to their perception of peace,
Yeah.
because the women we talk to define peace differently.
Of course, because
They
there's
define it
pre-existing
completely differently.
violence. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that
Yeah.
is why, from their definition, from their view of the type of peace they are aspiring for, they think about the process that will take them there.
Exactly.
Which is definitely different from the current process, you know. And that is why even in SORT, us in SORT now, we are a little bit staying away from the efforts that are made by so many women organizations to raise the capacities of women currently on mediation processes and how to bring a women agenda to the table, negotiation table, if it happens. And we don't think that will make any transformation. It will not make any change. At least it will not have like a sustainable change, or the change that the women are aspiring for. And that's also gave us an idea in SORT to promote the idea of feminist peace. And we are working on that. You know, we are collecting
Fantastic.
all this information from the women to advocate for what we think is the right peace, you know, the feminist peace, which has different pillars, which has different strategies, and which
a
has
different
also
government.
different consequences.
And a different government would come out of it. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Asha, I'm aware that we're almost out of time, and people have asked a few questions, which are not simple questions, but I guess part of what I want to do is just make sure that you leave us with what you need from us. And that, you know, there's been lots of suggestions of solidarity and support in the chat, which we will make sure that you get, including some, you know, practical support around getting the message out through film. And folks have asked about the background to the war. There's so much more to talk about. But I would love for you and Ilham to leave us with some of the ways that we can contribute in our solidarity with you, from our relative, positions of power in the North. And yeah, just let us know what we can do, and we'll spread the word.
Okay, thank you. I think that's very, very, very central question, because we expect a lot. And we deserve a lot as well.
You do.
In the name of solidarity, and in the name of living in the same globe and probably sharing the same challenges. I think the first thing is that the war in Sudan, the way we talked about it, and maybe you felt the depth and toll of it, it is still a forgotten war. It is invisible. You don't see it in the media. You don't see it in the news, except rarely, when RSF do something or when Abdullah Hamdok do something, just bits and pieces here and there. So what we want is that for the world to know what is happening to us. We want people to realize that there are crimes against humanity committed every day in Sudan. They are not less than the crimes that are committed in Gaza, for example. And there is ethnic cleansing happened in Sudan, rape, trafficking, and we expect that you help us with a little visibility, and I think this webinar is one way of making what is happening in Sudan visible. And we want to send an alert message through you to the humanitarian agencies. They are not responding appropriately, and to say it politely and not in a harsh way. They are not responding appropriately to the crisis, and they are assuming their business as usual in an unusual situation. And I think, I am not sure if Canada is part of this humanitarian situation, but I think the way they are doing it is really, really the wrong way. They are coordinating with the government, which is part of the war itself. They are using the government channels for the humanitarian assistance to reach the people on the ground. And the government is discriminating, as I said, based on tribal or ethnicity or political affiliation. We expect also some sort of coordination and solidarity with the Sudanese in diaspora. I know that there are so many Sudanese in diaspora in Canada, for example. So we need their voices to help us. We need them to, with your support, to raise their voices and say what we cannot say inside Sudan, because inside Sudan there are so many things we cannot talk about. And to expose this horrific situation happening in Sudan. And I think also people need, like yourself, they need to know that this war in Sudan has a multiplier effect. It's a proxy war. So many actors are involved. Some of them we know, some of them we don't know. The war parties are getting weapons, they are getting resources, they are getting money, they are getting even probably soldiers, and this is affecting I think it will affect the whole world, in my view, because it involves even Russia and China and USA. I'm not sure about Canada, and I would like also to know, actually, there is a little bit of ambiguity when it comes to Canada's role, in the war in Sudan. And finally, from my side, and I will keep it to Ilham, the solidarity from the women movement, from the feminist movement. We have to bring that back on the table, we need the support, but we also have something to offer. Our experience is not like a small experience, and yeah, and we are trying also. Yeah, I think maybe you saw it in the you saw it in the reports. We are trying also to build our own feminism,
Yes.
contextualize feminism in Sudan. And we need to also have solidarity from other feminist movements, because all feminist movement has to do with the context they are living in. So I will stop here and leave Ilham maybe to continue.
Well, we're unfortunately out of time.
Okay.
But you have done a beautiful job of answering that question. And I think in the chat, we see lots of responses and ideas about how to continue the support from this day forward. There is an effort here in the Women, Peace and Security movement to keep, we have a whole, Interpares has really been instrumental in ensuring that there is an Eyes on Sudan focus. With direct access to government to keep talking about Sudan. And in my conversations with Global Affairs Canada, they have acknowledged that they do need to step up on this. So we're working on it. And I want to thank you from the bottom of every part of me for the incredible clarity that you have managed to keep even in the face of all of this. And I hope that we are able to send you all the comments from the chat, all the support, all the admiration, and fill your cup. We're here and we will continue to be here. And thank you for your laundry list of things we can be active on, and you can be sure we will be.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Rita. Thank you all. And we love you all. And we hope
we love you back.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you, Enterprise, for this.
Thank you so much. I just want to formally recognize Asha, Ilham, Amanda, the amazing webinar today. Really appreciated it. I want to thank Monique, our tech person, for having this webinar go off so flawlessly, and the Interpares comms team. And I want to thank the interpreter as well. Thank you so much. And then those of you who joined today and who care about this issue, deep appreciation. The recording link will be available shortly on our website and will be sent around to you. As well, we will be publishing the research that Asha was referencing in the coming weeks. So thanks everyone for joining. Goodbye and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.